Story 1. When my sister and I said we were done with dinner or full, my grandmother would say, "Well, finish your milk, it fills in the cracks." I was eating with my sister and her children, and that slipped out. My sister and I just stared at each other and then started laughing. Grandma has been gone for over 30 years, but her words of wisdom live on. Story 2. So what? We do not care. We still love you. I realize my parents were completely open and accepting, and not everyone who comes out hears these words. I was, as a young 20-year-old, and still am, as a middle-aged man, grateful for their love, support, and acceptance. Story 3. Count on people not doing their jobs. Dating men is the same problem with a different face. It's all about whose face you are willing to wake up to. Now that I think about it, that is probably why I put up with so much. Story 4. We'll see. Dad said, "No way." The same dad drove a station wagon with 6 kids on Western state highways, smoking a cigar and asking for a beer from the cooler. The 1960s were wild. Story 5. Me. "Mom, where's my sock?" Mom, pointing, "Right there on your bed. If it was a snake, it would have bitten you." Me at 72. Still will not go hiking, still afraid of unseen snakes. Story 6. My mom was French. She would sometimes mix up different English sayings into a new one. I will always remember, "Cry me up the river without a paddle." Story 7. Not really a phrase, more like words of wisdom. My dad told me never to rely on a man to take care of me. He told me to get a good education so I could get a good job and make enough money to take care of myself. He said he knew my mom had never worked, but times might be different when I was an adult, and I needed to be able to take care of myself. I followed his advice. Story 8. The last thing my father ever said, well, screamed, to me before I walked out the door was, "You are ruining your life." He was wrong. Story 9. Mother, be your own sweet self. Father, do not let anyone take advantage of you. These pieces of advice have made me both sweet and salty. Story 10. No way am I stopping for McDonald's. We have dinner ready at home. Later at home, I found out that was not the case. Dad went and got McDonald's. Now I cannot even do that with my kids because even fast food seems like a high-end paying restaurant. Story 11. One word. Yelp. My dad is weird in a good way. My dad, mom, brother, and I were walking around Safeway. Mom, brother, and I lost dad. Brother said, "I wonder where dad is." Then we heard Yelp from about 3 aisles over. Mom just said, "Found him." Story 12. Technically not my parents, my foster father told me, "Don't come back." One of the times when I ran away. Story 13. Now that you are getting older. So many times they felt the need to dampen my spirits to prepare me for crushing adulthood. Story 14. Tables are for glasses, not for seats. Children should be seen and not heard. Here for a good time, not for a long time. I would rather be underestimated than overestimated. The only thing that comes from being a good worker is more work. Story 15. We have a ton of fantastic terms. That thing. The thing Bob. The thing Duda. The Duda thing magic. The thing Duda that does XYZ. Story 16. Mom, wait until your father gets home. Dad, stop crying or I will give you something else to cry about. Story 17. Your face will freeze like that. If everyone jumped off a bridge, would you? Why would he buy the cow if he gets the milk for free? Story 18. My dad said, "The main thing is, don't get excited." He usually said this when I was in grade school and had forgotten or postponed an assignment until the last minute, or when I was working on something and made a mistake. He was a carpenter. It was his way of saying that having a panic attack would not help. So take a deep breath and let's figure it out. Even if there is no solution, panicking will not help. I learned this lesson over time. I don't think I heard him say it after I was about 12, but it stuck with me. Story 19. Better to be angry than to be treated poorly, Dad said. Te lo macho, Mom said when I told her something hurt. It basically means, do you want me to cut it off? Story 20. Many, but a few gems. Work hard now and it will pay you in spades. Do not put off until tomorrow what can be done today. Do not bleed on the floor. It is slicker than snot on a doorknob. Story 21. Never let them see you cry. That has not been a lifetime of trouble asking for help, having my needs met, or understanding my emotions at all. Thanks, Mom. Story 22. If you have it in your hand, put it away or throw it away. I used to hate hearing this. Now that I have a family, I want to shout it every day. Story 23. I'll backhand you right here in public. I brought you into this world. I can take you out. Do you want me to give you a reason to cry? Good times. Story 24. My grandmother said, you can have something in one hand and want in the other. See which one fills up first. Story 25. The fearful intensity with which my mother would answer the phone, hello, on the occasion of a rare nighttime call. In the 1960s, a nighttime phone call usually meant bad things. Illness, an accident, or a death. Story 26. When we took long showers, my uncle would yell, Niagara Falls called. They are running out of water. I now say this to my husband. Story 27. Dad. Every day. I love you so much. You are incredibly smart, and I am so proud of you. Also, Dad, and if you are ever attacked by a bear, punch it as hard as you can in the nose and run away. But make sure it is a really hard punch, because if he feels up to chasing you afterward, he is going to be mad. My siblings and I were told this often. We did grow up in rural Canada, but still, it feels Dad's concern about bear attacks was disproportionate. Another gem from my father, the outdoorsman. There is not much to worry about out in the bush. The wolves are not going to bother you. It is the human wolves you need to look out for. Dad, I miss him every day. Story 28. Me talking to my dad about a certain situation. I don't even remember what it was about anymore. You may be too old for me to tell you what to do, but you will never be too old for me not to worry about you. My siblings and I always say we won the parent lottery. Story 29. No, the school children are just teasing you. You are not adopted. Think about it, son. There is no way we would have picked you. Story 30. Lots, but one that is more practical advice than delightfully zany and opinionated is always shop from the right side of the menu. Story 31. My mom always told me that growing up, if you could not control your emotions as a man, the system would put you in places that control how you feel. Story 32. I can run faster than you can. I was scared. I didn't know my mom was a track star in high school. I learned that lesson the hard way. Story 33. My mama always told me it's not the size of the ship. It's the motion in the ocean. Yes, she really did. Story 34. My dad always told me, you do not have to be the best. Just make sure you are improving every day. He mostly said it about school, but it stuck with me beyond that. Story 35. Not my parents, but my grandfather always used to come out to the car to see us off after a visit. And he would always tell me, don't take any wooden nickels. Story 36. My dad told me at the age of 10, if you go to jail or prison, I am not coming to bail you out or see you for any reason. I am now 49 and, by the grace of God, have not been locked up. Story 37. If you break your legs, do not come running to me about it. If you are adult enough to ask the question, you are adult enough to learn the answer. Story 38. Grandparent World War II veteran said, if no one is shooting at you today, it is a good day. They told me this at an early age and gave me a lifetime of positive perspective and no reason to complain about anything, no matter how bad the previous day had been. Story 39. I will kick your ass until your nose bleeds. Even the most rebellious of us were not dumb enough to push it past that point. Story 40. It is a word called ayıp in Turkish culture. It can be translated to shameful or disgraceful. I am still traumatized by it. Story 41. If it is not yours, do not touch it. Always return things in the same or better condition. Do not cry or I will give you something to cry about. Think about it. Now do not think about it. It is all fun and games until someone gets hurt. Why do I have to yell for you to listen? Story 42. Inshallah. It is Arabic. It is used in the context of hopefully. My mom said it so much on instinct that it kind of started to mean, I will forget about what you asked as soon as you leave. Bonus. There is no such thing as relax. Story 43. Can't never could, nor would. Every time I told my dad I could not do something, that was his response. It has really pushed me to try to do things even if I do not think I can. It is amazing how much you find you are capable of when you are willing to try. Story 44. Be aware of your surroundings. Said very firmly and calmly. Congratulations on that, Dad. I don't know how you managed it, after I almost walked off a sidewalk in front of a truck while talking. Story 45. There's a place for everything and everything in its place, my dad said. He was big on putting things back where you found them. Story 46. Why does my sister get to do that, but I don't? Because we like her better. No, that statement did not destroy me. I knew it was ridiculous. They said it to all of us. Story 47. I brought you into this world. I can take you out. I love my mother, and she obviously never truly meant it. Story 48. I'll be sure they put on your tombstone. He had the right of way. Yes, Mom, I still look both ways before moving. Editing to add. The above was frequent and so it stuck with me. She also said once and only once, but it stuck with me. I only wanted daughters. She had 2 boys. We fought daily. I'm sure she was justified in her venting. Story 49. My dad used to say, listen to what I mean, not what I say. Of course, it is said after tripping up on what you were trying to say. Story 50. I'll kill you, tell God you died, then make another that looks just like you, tugging on those heartstrings, I know. Story 51. This gem from my mother. It's a good thing you're not afraid of a little hard work. Lord knows you'll never have a boyfriend or husband to support you. Just another dig about how fat and ugly she thought I was. Story 52. What are you, stupid? Don't just stand there with your bare face showing. Always pay at least a little bit every month. Do you want your arm in a sling? Eat everything on your plate. You will never get a boyfriend. Yes, it was a good time. Story 53. One day you will thank me. You are grounded. If I told you once, I have told you 1,000 times. I miss you so much, Mom. Story 54. My way or the highway is self-explanatory. Rule of elimination is not self-explanatory because there is no rule, and it does not matter since no one can truly claim it. Story 55. As an overweight teenager, I overheard my mother tell my father, if you reach 200 pounds, you will have to live in the camper. It ruined any self-esteem I had. I stopped believing in unconditional love. Story 56. Why can't you be normal? You'll never be successful if that's how you make my coffee. Men don't like a crybaby. Are you sure you like girls? Because I think that's just a phase. You shouldn't have shaved your head. Now people will think you're a boy. If you get pregnant, I'll kill you and take the baby. You're going to die fat and alone. If you kill yourself, I'll call the police and get you locked up in the hospital. If you cry, I'll call the police on you for causing a public disturbance. I'm punishing you for being alive and not saving my marriage. Nobody will want to be your friend if even I don't like you. You were wearing those clothes. You were asking for it. You told your brother to do the dishes and wonder why he beat you up. You'll always be a failure. If you lock your door, I'll call the police and tell them you're killing your brother. If you cut one more time, I'll call the police and tell them you assaulted me. Just a sample of many things that only my biological mother said. Now she wonders why I have no contact with her. Story 57. Knock it off or I will beat you from one end of the house to the other. My late mother said this to my brother, who constantly harassed her over trivial matters. Story 58. You will remember what I talked about today. I do not actually remember what he talked about before saying that. Story 59. I always thought you could have been better if you had just applied yourself. From someone who spent her entire life as an underpaid kitchen staff member but could do math in her head faster than you could punch it into a calculator. Story 60. My father was from Towanda, Pennsylvania. Whenever we complained about some malady, actual or perceived, he would call it South Towanda tater rot. You're hurting you? South Towanda tater rot. Rash on your arm? South Towanda tater rot. Toe fungus? South Towanda tater rot. It is a go-to for all medical problems in my family. I am curious if the people of South Towanda have a similar affliction they call North Towanda tater rot. Story 61. Pretty is as pretty does. I hated it so much. When ugly things are happening, I do not want to act pretty. Story 62. My grandmother would say, cute as a bug's ear, and I'm going to dance at your wedding with a cowbell on. Story 63. Stop being so stubborn or else I'll sell you to the organized crime group. Mom always used the word organized crime group to threaten me when I was young. Story 64. My dad always says, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. He does not remember where he got it from, but he remembers how it has influenced him, and I am glad he has shared it with me. Story 65. Something my dad said to me once not only solved my immediate problem. I was knocking on my parents' door late at night, in a panic about something I thought I was going to fail to turn in on time. He asked, is there anything you can do about it right now? I immediately realized the answer was no, went back to bed, got a good night's sleep, and then dealt with it appropriately in the morning. Story 66. Grandpa. I've been shot at and missed, but insulted and affected. Grandpa. Hope in one hand and disappointment in the other. See which one fills up faster. Story 67. I'm going to start swinging and don't care who I hit. Dad from driver's seat to us 3 kids in the back seat when we got rowdy. Story 68. If you are looking for sympathy, you will find it in the dictionary between shit and syphilis. There were also the 7 Ps. Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. Story 69. I was the youngest of 3 boys, and when something wasn't fair, my mom said, it'll all turn out even when you are 25. It absolutely didn't and never did. We all got different things that fit our personalities. I see now how hard it was for my mom, dealing with us 3 and a non-present, alcoholic father. At 50, she accepted her marriage wouldn't work, so she went back to get her master's degree. When the divorce happened, she got a lawyer, he didn't. While my mom didn't take advantage of him, she got back pay for 20 miserable years. I absolutely love her. Am now her primary caretaker, and dread the day she goes. Story 70. I have become my mother. We have food, drinks, and fruit at home. I was born last night, but not yesterday. Story 71. After mentioning something terrible my father did, he said, let it go, like the song. I took him at his word and went no contact, just like the song. Story 72. Tidy up your room or I will show every guest tomorrow. Tidy up your room or I will take a picture and put it on the internet. She does not want me to tell you, but continues to tell her friend what I asked her not to tell anyone. Story 73. You're a better door than a window. We would say whenever we blocked the TV by walking in front of it and stopping because we became mesmerized by what was on. Story 74. I wish I had an abortion, my mom said to 8-year-old me because I made my own sandwich since nobody saved me any dinner. Story 75. I have 2. The second was harder, but I got there. 1. When you think you have gone far enough, take another step. 2. If you do not define your own value, someone else will. Know your worth. Story 76. Always be able to fall back on yourself. Raised by a single mother who admittedly had and has incredibly poor taste in men. Even so, I still think it is solid advice. Life just happens sometimes, and it is good to have yourself covered independently of anyone else. Story 77. There is a difference between saying, God, I stole a rope, and God, I stole a rope with a cow attached to it. Story 78. A scorpion only knows how to sting, a snake to bite, and a mosquito to sting. My parents taught me that saying, and it has stuck with me for a while. It is a good reason I have been able to get out of some abusive relationships I found myself in. I have good self-esteem, so I always wondered how I got myself into toxic and abusive relationships. Story 79. Do as I say, not as I do. My mom would always tell me and my sister. Maybe it was to cover up or turn the fact that she is a hypocrite into a joke. But I do not know. Story 80. Life is like a bike ride. Sometimes you go through potholes, but you have to keep pedaling to straighten out. Story 81. When standing in front of the television, I know your father was a pain, but it doesn't mean you are made of glass. Story 82. My mom used to say, marry someone the same height as you, while adjusting every setting in her car after dad had driven it. Story 83. Children who dare to ask will be skipped or overlooked. In Dutch, kinderen die vragen worden overgeslagen. Story 84. I'm going to take you to the retired school and trade you in for a kid that will actually listen. If you had brains, you would be dangerous. When God asked you if you wanted brains, you thought he said trains and said, no, I don't need any. Hey, get me another beer. Story 85. If I were you, I would not bother trying to clean up. I would burn this room to the ground and start all over. Talking about my very messy room during my teenage days. Story 86. If that is how you talk to girls, then you will never get laid. My current number of partners is 15. I am still 22 years old. Story 87. Oh, don't worry. You weren't a mistake. You were a regret. Your siblings, on the other hand, are gifts. This was said to me by my mother on my birthday when I asked her if she regretted anything. I was 6. Story 88. Life is difficult and then you die. Let's go get a donut. This was my mother's quote. I made it my senior quote but have never shown her because I thought she might find it too morbid and be embarrassed. Story 89. If this is the worst thing to happen to you, you are having a pretty good day. Always helpful to reorient myself after a minor setback or annoyance in my day. Story 90. What makes you think you are supposed to be happy? My dad, when I told him I was married to an alcoholic and wanted out. Story 91. I cannot wait for you to have children of your own, and I hope they are autistic too so you understand just how difficult it was to deal with. I am only high functioning. Story 92. If you do not want to eat with a bad spoon, do not stir up trouble, said Mom, while fishing after placing his pole in a holder. I have to go pee. Will you hold my rod while I go? Asked stepfather. Story 93. Your father has been arrested for solicitation of a minor. I was 15, and from that point until shortly after my 18th birthday, my life was a blur. But that moment, sitting on the couch while Mom told me that, felt like the biggest gut punch. I cannot imagine ever forgetting it. Story 94. I don't know, I didn't go to school in this country because she didn't. She emigrated to the United States as a teenager. I heard this all my life, all the time in the most random situations. About 10 to 15, maybe even 20 years ago, we were doing some family history work and had a detailed map of her home country out. We were comparing the handwriting on an online record to the names of the villages in a certain area. And she said to me, do you think this is a letter G or a letter S? Whatever, 2 different letters anyway. I stopped and realized and had to say, I don't know. I didn't go to school in that country. I laughed until I cried and then I laughed some more. I woke up the next morning laughing. I laughed while I was texting my brother, who just replied with, nice one, and many laughing symbols. I forgot about it for 5 or so years, and then something reminds me like your post and I start cracking up all over again. Thanks for the reminder. Story 95. I was about 18, moping over a girl who left me, and told my father I dream about her. He replied, you'll do that for the rest of your life. Not the advice I wanted, but I guess it was kind of true. I am 46 now, and even though I don't miss her and married the right one, I still dream about her now and then. Story 96. Husband's Mom Edition. If you had just applied yourself, you only have yourself to blame. Your behavior is atrocious. Why can't you be more like the child who is doing better academically? Story 97. You can eat anything you want, but you cannot know everything you want. I have learned to respect other people's boundaries and not ask questions that are simply not to be asked or are too personal. This has made me completely resistant to reality television shows or gossip. I simply do not care about that stuff. Story 98. You don't feel like eating? That chicken on your plate died so you could have this meal. Are you gonna just throw it away? Story 99. My mom and my aunt were talking about the preventive medical examinations you have to do at 40. I said that I am afraid of all these, and my mom said, you do not have to become 40 years old. Story 100. Jesus, Mary, Joseph, and the little donkey. You know things are going down when the little donkey makes an appearance. Bless my mom. I cross-stitched this phrase for her last birthday. Story 101. Your mother would be so disappointed in what you have become, my father said. My mother died 3 years ago from cancer. I am a 21-year-old man, queer and an atheist, and I have completely different views from the rest of my family. Story 102. You shouldn't have dressed like that. My 17-year-old sister had rejected an adult man asking her out while she was at work. He had been waiting for her in his car to finish her shift and tried to run her off the road while she biked home. She had moved out because our mother was beating her, and she was so scared this man was going to find out where she lived that she went to my parents' house, where she used to get beaten, in full panic. After my sister explained what had happened, the first thing my mother said was that a man tried to murder her child, and she decided to go for slut-shaming and victim-blaming. Sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh for cutting my mother off and keeping her away from my children. Should I have tried harder? Then I remember what she said and move on with my day. Story 103. If I asked for something I didn't need, my parents would always say, you can get a toy to play with. Story 104. Money doesn't grow on trees. Truth or nonsense? Fair is where the farmers throw cow pies. What are you writing a book? Story 105. When you give something, you give the best. My dad said this to me once when he asked me to give fruits to our neighbors. I had picked out the old or overly ripe ones to give, and he gently corrected me with that line. It is a lesson I have carried with me ever since. Story 106. Me as a child. Mom, my head hurts. Mom, it's a good sign. It means you have a head. Mom, go wash the dishes. Me insistent. But Mom, my head hurts. Mom, you are not going to wash them with your head. You just need your hands. I broke that cycle with my own kids. Story 107. Quantity translates to quality. It is not wishful thinking. It is a scientific principle. Even if you are not immediately good at something, do it enough times and you will see progress. In retrospect, my mother was unprepared to handle the emotional meltdowns of little me. She could show strictness to halt my rare temper tantrums but had no words ready to lift me up when I lost faith in myself. Nonetheless, she deserves a medal for improvising something each time there was a need. The statement above, combined with the paragraph on learning curves from 8th grade biology textbook, when learning a new skill, it is common to make visible progress quickly, then hit a plateau or even regress on previous gains. This halt tends to be discouraging enough to stop altogether, but if endured, it serves to optimize separate parts of the skill set and make further progress possible. Formed the backbone of my resolve to keep doing things. Story 108. Go, 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 go. I am not worthy. Touchdown. Yes, some of the best childhood memories of our dad watching football. Interestingly enough, he has since mellowed out, and the rest of us have gotten into football more and have taken up the slack. Go Birds. Or Lions, as long as you are not playing the Eagles. Story 109. If you are going to hoot with the Owls, you have to soar with the Eagles. I have been a big partier since high school, but I have always made it to work. Story 110. Sabihin mo sa akin kapag niloko ka ni Juan. Lilipat na lang ulit tayo ng bahay. Nakalipat na kami ng bahay simula 2024, pero hindi naman dahilan yung sinabi ng papa ko. Nayon ko lang talaga na appreciate ang papa ko. Story 111. My dad said, it will feel better when it stops hurting. This is true for injuries and broken hearts. I still say it to this day. Story 112. I hope that when you have children, you can see how much you made my life a living hell. My mother, I do not talk to her anymore. Story 113. Do not talk about politics unless you are looking for an argument. Do not talk about religion unless you are looking for a fight. My father is not the smartest drunk, but that was a good one. Story 114. My mom once said to my older brother and his friends, who were teenagers, as they were leaving the house for a night out. She had had a couple of glasses of wine and said, "If you are with a girl, always take your socks off first, because nothing looks more stupid than a man in just his socks." That was 35 years ago, and I still take my socks off first, even when my wife is not in the house. Story 115. Moms say, "Put on clothes, it's cold outside." And then dads say, "Mom's cold, put clothes on the kids." I mean, we still use that today, and I still love it. He has always been silently sassy. Story 116. Are you homosexual or what? No, Dad, I am not homosexual, and I was not back then either. I just hung out with my friend every day. We played video games or cards, and the reason we hid was because you dislike those two things almost as much as homosexual people. I am glad I lived with my mother and saw him less every year. Story 117. Who died and made you king? I would say whenever I tried to set up boundaries, like, don't just barge into my room or the bathroom when I am in there. Story 118. Why don't you learn something from an overachieving friend? Especially when I used to bring the report card home. Story 119. You always say sorry afterwards. This is typically said when I had broken something or made a mess somehow. Just once, I wanted to say sorry first, and then break something or make a mess. I never had the courage to do it, but I really wanted to. Story 120. You are looking with your mouth, not your eyes. Whenever I could not find anything, they managed to find it immediately. Story 121. Not my parents, but my Uncle Johnny was a massive inspiration to me growing up. He died in his early 50s from cancer. An amazing showman and singer. He deserved so much more. He was charisma. He used to always tell me, especially on bad days, what will be, with that self-assured look on his face. Man. So now whenever things are rough or I can't control them, I tell this to myself. Basically, whatever happens, happens. But when it's Johnny's words, I know I can trust it and push forward. Miss you, Johnny. Hope you get to meet Ozzy. Something tells me you would like that. Story 122. Graveyards are filled with people who had the right of way. My father said when he was teaching me how to drive. Always assume people on the road are careless. It does not matter who is at fault if you die. Story 123. You kids are beautiful, said the old man with every bit of toxic disgust he could muster. Thanks for the memories, Dad. Story 124. Your older self should know better. Jealousy is a sin. If the wind changes, your face will stay like that. You are a disbelieving Arab. I never understood that one. Story 125. You need to stop looking for medical diagnoses that do not exist, such as basically every mental health disorder or disability. Why cannot parents learn that mental health does exist? In my case, all my problems are because of my parents, not the phone. Story 126. One time when I was 12, I wasn't getting my way and absolutely lost it on my dad. I screamed some nasty things and told him I hated him. He looked at me with so much pain in his eyes, grabbed me in a huge bear hug, and told me, "I'm sorry to hear that. I will love you more than I can explain until the moment I die." I bawled. I think that was the moment I realized that my dad would die one day, and also the moment I realized how unconditionally he loved me. That was so long ago, and I remember it vividly. Story 127. My dad once told me, "If I had a lot of money, I would never let you work for anyone or struggle." That moment hit me hard. But fate had other plans. I ended up joining the army for 4 years. Now, we live happily, and honestly, I care about his happiness more than my own. The truth is, fathers have deep feelings. We just do not always know how to see them. Story 128. From Dad. Marry in haste, repent at leisure. Also from Dad, when he had friends over for dinner, at some point he would hold up his wine glass and say, "It's a naive little wine without any breeding, but I think you'll be amused by its presumption." His friends would roll their eyes and say, "Forget you." Fun times. Story 129. Us in the car. Are we there yet? Dad. We will be there when we get there. Mom. Brush your teeth unless you want to be like grandma. Referring to dentures. Mom saying just try every time we left the house and asking if we needed to go to the bathroom, and we said no. Story 130. Mine is actually wisdom from my dad. He was riding with me when I was learning to drive and someone went at a four-way stop sign when it was my turn to go. When I complained about it, my dad simply said, "Don't die defending your right of way." Years later, that has taken on a sobering new meaning as road rage incidents have increased dramatically. So when someone cuts me off or muscles their way in front of me in traffic, I remember that and don't engage. I just let them go. It's not worth dying for. Story 131. Off like a herd of turtles. Thanks, Mom. Dad, on the other hand, was a little more politically incorrect with his comment. Off to teach a Chinese man how to play the banjo. In other words, he was going to use the bathroom. Story 132. I always answer work calls with South obligation speaking. My mother, if she called, would always reply, Mom obligation speaking. She's been gone for a while now, and I still miss it. Story 133. While I was using a handsaw to cut wood, my dad would say, let the saw do the work, meaning just move the saw back and forth. Don't push down heavily on the saw in an attempt to cut quicker. Again, while sawing wood, if I was making short, rapid saw cuts, Dad would say, you paid for all the saw blade, why not use it all? He meant make full, smooth cuts with the blade, conserving energy. Story 134. Were you born in a tent? This has been repeated quite a bit over the last few weeks. My children and colleagues at work keep leaving the door wide open in the middle of winter while the heater is running. Story 135. Early is on time is late is unacceptable. It is ingrained in my brain to the point I actually feel uneasy if I am not where I need to be early enough. Story 136. A lot of things in this post are fairly generic statements everyone knows. I am going to share something my dad told me that really stuck and helped shape who I am today. One time I told my dad I did not want to do something for someone because it was a waste of my time. He told me never to have that outlook because it implies my time is more important than someone else's. Even if I think it or it may be true, I should never tell someone that. This advice really stuck with me. Time is the single most valuable thing we have in life. Discounting someone else's time and saying my time is more valuable than theirs is an extremely hurtful thing to say. I have since grown to truly treasure my own time and also be respectful of others. Story 137. If everyone jumped off a bridge, would you do it too? My dad loved this one whenever I wanted to follow the crowd without thinking. Story 138. There is only black and white. There is no gray. My dad says every chance he gets. I hate it so much. Story 139. My mom used a made-up phrase, or at least I think it was made up. It could be from her native language, German, but it was something like, Stop man Boganoff. That's how it sounded phonetically to me. It was basically her way of cursing and showing irritation, though sometimes she said it in jest. Story 140. We had a really difficult family situation because of my father. He is a horrible person, and his personal life is very troubled. Despite me and my little brother, he has another daughter from another woman, and he loves her much more than us. Always loved. At that time, my parents were arguing, and I was hiding in my room when my dad shouted, She isn't my daughter. She doesn't love me, doesn't hug me, doesn't call me daddy, but she, my little sister from another woman, is my daughter. I love her, and she loves me. For context, I was really afraid of my dad because of his alcohol problems and personal troubles. He always chose my sister over me, so it was scary for me to even be near him. I no longer contact my dad and little sister, but I still remember that day and that phrase. Something broke inside me then. Story 141. Some lighter ones. Little Bear ran away, bravely ran away. Little Bear was our cat growing up. And it is hot and dangerous. Story 142. This is not a democracy. It is a dictatorship, and I am the leader. My dad, whenever we wanted to talk our way out of doing something. Story 143. My mother used to say that something was plumb dumb. I tell the people at work that I can deal with pretty much anything as long as we haven't hit the plumb dumb level. Story 144. All good things must come to an end. That's how my mother responded when I did not want to come home from camp or when vacations were over. I never understood this statement. Story 145. My parents were mostly great, but they always chose to focus on the negatives whenever it came to school or anything like that. I remember a parent-teacher night in grade 5. The teacher was telling them that I was extremely good at math and performing considerably above my grade level. They stone-facedly said, "Yeah, but their printing is messy, and that's kind of how they've always been. No matter what I accomplish or how much help I give them, they compulsively find something negative and dwell on it." Story 146. Mom would say we would give something a lick and a promise if we were out of time to work on it. I used that phrase recently. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.